Right, friends. So let's proceed further now. What is it that we are talking about is, uh, yeah. So I have already demonstrated to you how to use plain core Java and talk to the database. That's how it is. I want you to, as I said, do homework on how to update, how to delete, simple stuff. Exactly the same way that I have inserted. It's exactly the same way. It is just that the statement would be different. It will be an update statement or a delete statement. Now, my dear friends, don't you think this is boilerplate code? This is called boilerplate code. The kind of code which is very common. What is it that I do in order to talk to the database? I load the driver, I get the connection object, I create the statement object, and then I fire the select statement and get the result set, and I loop through it. This is quite a common thing. Only what changes is the kind of data and the way you handle the data. And more often than not, what you do is that you do not just simply get the data and display it like this. You do not work with the result set. You will ideally create a class like I mean, you will create a class called training. I repeat, you will create a class called training, and in that training you will create an object of the training class, and in the object of the training class you will put the values here. What I'm trying to tell you is, you will have in your model package ideally a class, and I will give the name of the class as training. That's how you will create a class. And here you will have private, okay, int, integer, I would say, okay, id. Then you'll say, okay, it's training id, right? I better keep the name of the column in the database and the name of the properties over here exactly the same. I'll say string short title, okay, I'll say private, and I'll say string long title. Okay, this is what I have, correct? And then I click right mouse button, source, generate setter getter methods. I'll say select all, I'll say generate, and you see this, all my setter getter methods are created. So I've got a training object here. So what I would do ideally is that this is the function that will not have display trainings, which will just simply return nothing. Usually you will have list of training, and you will return the training list of trainings here like this, and then the training object. But then you see, now I am not returning anything here. So this is how typically your code would look like. You'll say list of training, I'll say trainings is equal to new array list. Okay, this is how it is. And then in each one of these, each time you go in the loop, you will say training is equal to, see, it's pretty simple, new training. It's just the logic, I'm building the list of training objects, and then I'll say training dot set, I'll say training id. Tell me what would that be? Okay, the training id that I already have there, my dear friends. Training dot set short title would be nothing but the short title. Training dot, okay, long set long title would be nothing but the long title. And what will I do before I go back in the loop? I'll say trainings, that data structure that I created up over here, this one, this, okay, the list trainings dot add, and in brackets I'll say training. You can see this here. Okay, and then finally what I'm supposed to return back from this function, I'll say return trainings, which is actually the list of trainings, and that is what I have specified here. This is what I will be returning back. You see this here. So I have demo.display trainings. Instead of that, let me change. How do you refactor? How do you change the name so that everywhere it changes? You'll click right mouse button, you can say refactor and rename. So when I do this, I'll say get trainings, and you can see everywhere it changes. Get trainings. Here I can write list of training, and I'll say trainings is equal to, this is how it is. Alright, so instead of me displaying this over here, you see system.out.println, I have commented it over here. I have got the trainings here, and here I can very well now display. I'll say for, you see the for loop that I'm creating, training. This is the object of class training, from coming from where? In trainings. Okay, this is the kind of a for loop. You see, very simple. Each time it runs in the loop, it will have a new object training, which will be pointing to the next object in the list of trainings. And then here I can very well write system.out.println. I'll just, for the time being, I'll say training dot, and I'll say get short title. Okay, when I run this code, see this, for now I will comment the demo.insert training. Okay, and I will run only and only this code, and you can see this, I get the list Java 1.1 and Apache Kafka. Okay, you can see this. I'll say printing in main. Okay, I'll say printing in main, and you can see this here. Here you go, printing in main Java 1.8 and Apache. So please do refer to this, see the way I have done it. Now the point here is this. Now I am moving on to Spring JPA. Okay, this is the time I am moving on to Spring JPA. What Spring Framework says is that it says, why are you writing all of this code? It's a training table, and you will write this code, connect to the database, get the, load the driver, connect to the database, create the statement, fire the query, loop through the result set, put the why are you doing this? You're doing this for training. You will do this for training. You will do this for subject. You will do this for topics. You will do this for all the tables in the database. Why are you doing this? Spring Framework says, I will give you something called Spring JPA, Spring Java Persistency API, and there is an implementation provided by Hibernate. Forget about all that internal details, don't worry. But using Spring JPA, Spring says, you don't do all this. You just tell me what is the class, and it tells me that you map this class to the table in the database. That mapping also will be done automatically once I annotate this class. In short, Spring JPA says, if the name of the class is training, I will look for a table in the database called training. That is what it says. Okay, and it says that I will look for the columns by the name in that table, in the training table. I will look for the columns training ID, short title, and long title. It says I will fire the select statement. It says I will create an object of array list. It says I will put each and every row corresponding to the training object. So if there are 10 rows, it says I will create 10 training objects, put it in the array list, and give it to you. It says, why are you writing the code? I say, wow, this is superb, Mr. Spring JPA. If this is what it is, I'm happy, right? How do I do it? So this is how you will be using Spring JPA. In order to use Spring JPA, as I said, Spring is a completely modular, framework. I will have to use the dependency here. So I will keep my MySQL connector as it is. I need to use a dependency here. I need to plug in the dependency here. And that plugging of dependency is of Spring JPA. And what is that Spring JPA dependency here, friends? I need to, have that Spring starter. I'll say dependency. I am typing it out over here. Okay, dependency. Hopefully I am able to, I'll say group ID is the same, org.springboot. This is what it would be. And artifact ID would be, I am Spring -JPA. Okay, well, I think I am missing it. So I need to go and, check it out. There is yet another way. That what that is, if that is available in your okay, see, there is an option called edit starters. I will click on edit starters. Okay, save POM file. That's fine. It will again take me back to that same dialog box that I had used. Okay, there is an issue. I think there is some problem here. Okay, not a problem. So I'll just Google it out. Okay, Spring Boot, I'll say JPA dependency. Okay, I'll get that. Okay, here it is. You can see spring.io. Okay, dependency, it will give me here itself. Okay. Here you go with the, here it is. See this dependency here. Here it is. I go back here to my project and I will just simply copy it over here like this. That's it. I don't need to give the version. It will pick up the version automatically. The latest version is 2.3.1. You can see it says managed version is 2.31. The artifact ID is managed by Spring Boot and so on. So, right? I got that. Now, once I do this, once I put this here, Spring Boot starter data, you can type it out if you want. Okay. Or if you want to, the way I Googled it, you can also Google it out. Okay. And then I go to my training class and I will annotate this as, okay, as @entity. Okay, I'll say this is, sorry, I'll say you can see this Java x.persistence entity, Java x.persistence. I just need to mark this as what? As an entity, @entity. It will understand that this is the class that is mapped to some or the other table in the database, and the table happens to be the training table. But there is one additional thing. I need to tell that there is something called @ID over here. @ID. What does this mean? @ID means this training ID happens to be the primary key. This is the identification key. This is the primary key. That's it. That's what I need to do. Okay. I'll just keep this as it is, nothing else. And now I will create a class here, yet another, I will create an interface. I'll say interface, and in this interface, what will be the name of this interface? I'll say training repository. Okay, see the name I have given, training repository. This is an interface. It will extend from, okay, extends, okay, from, I'll say JPA repository. You can see that here, JPA repository, and it's a generic type. It says JPA repository. So this is the repository of which class? I'll say this happens to be a training class. Next, it says what is the data type of the ID. So in training, you see this. Okay, let me, okay, okay. What I'm trying to do is, okay. This is in which package? Okay, just let me do this long or integer here, and then I come back and tell you what it is. Okay, right. Oh, what's wrong? Yeah. Why to import? I'm so sorry. Why would I import? Because this training repository is also in the same package. You can see this in the same package, so you don't need to import it. Sorry. Now, what is this? What is the second thing? One is the which class. This repository is being created for which class, and what is the data type of the primary key. So when I control click over here, see what is the data type of the primary key? Integer. Hence, I will give integer over here. Okay, that's how it understands that what is the data type of the primary key, right? Nothing else. I just need to do one additional thing. I will have to mark this as, sorry, repository @repository. This is what I will have to see, this @repository. That's it. Nothing else. What have I done? I created a class called training and I marked it as @entity. I have ensured that the name of the column, name of the properties here maps to the name of the columns in the table training. And then @ID is the specification that this is the primary key in my table. This property, let me see, this property training ID maps to the this property training ID maps to the primary key in the table with the same name, training ID. I created an interface, extended it from JPA repository. I said training comma integer. Training happens to be the name of the class for which this repository is getting created. This is the data type of the primary key. I annotated this as @repository. That's it. It's done, my dear friends. It's done. You will be thrilled to see this. Now you remember in the controllers we did create a demo REST controller yesterday. You remember that? Okay. We will leave that as it is. I will create another controller here. Let me create a class. Okay, I will give the name of the class as training REST controller. See the name, another controller class. I will have to mark it as REST controller. After doing that, I say public. Okay, I say public list of training. Okay, and here I'll say get trainings. Okay, I like to give handle get trainings. This is how I like to name my handlers in my controller classes. Okay, and then I'll use Control Shift O. Okay, and I do this. And what will be the get mapping? I'll say get mapping. We have already studied all this. Path is equal to /v1/ I'll say trainings. That means give me the list of all the trainings. Now how do I get the trainings here? You remember, do I have to write JDBC code here? No. I don't have to load the driver. I don't have to get the connection object. I don't have to create a statement. I don't have to execute the query. I don't have to loop through the result set. I don't have to create new training object and put it into an array list and then get the array list. No. I will only do what? I'll tell my Spring framework, you see, please auto wire, that means automatically wire the object of this training repository that I created. This is an interface. It will automatically generate a class runtime. That class implements that interface. That class will have all the required implementation. And I'm telling my Spring framework that, okay, my training repository is this. And I'll say repository. I'll give the name of the variable. I'm saying you automatically wire that dynamic class into this particular variable. In short, understand this. I need to only create an interface. Who is going to create a class that will implement this interface? Spring framework. I don't have to do that. Who will provide the implementation of all the methods in this training repository? That dynamic class done by Spring framework. I don't need to do it. And what all are the methods do you think will be there in this interface? Please note, training repository extends from JPA repository. That means all the methods that are declared in JPA repository will be automatically inherited here in this interface. When I control click on this, you can see all of this find all, find by ID. All of these methods are already there, my dear friends. It will automatically be inherited over here. Once again, do I need to worry about implementing the methods? No, that's the beauty. I will go back here. I'll just simply say list of training and I'll say trainings is equal to, I will say this repository that I have, I better give a meaningful name, training repo. I'll say this is okay. Training repo dot find all. I'll write find all. See what it returns. Oopsie. You see, it returns the list of training, correct? How does it understand that it is supposed to return the list of training? Because I have said that this JPA repository is for training, right? It understands that. And you can see, I'll say return, I'll say trainings. Okay, see this, return trainings, my dear friend. Take a look at this, such a beautiful thing, my dear. What have I done? A class, with the properties equal to the, which matches or maps to the columns in the table. Okay, it automatically understands, right, that the name of the table would be training in the database. If there is another name of the table in the database, then that also can be handled. I can very well say name is equal to whatever the name in the database is. So I may have demo underscore. Yeah, correct. I'll say training underscore demo. That is the name of the table, correct? So I'll say training underscore demo. If I leave it as it is, it will map to the training table, which would have worked in our case because I do have a training table there. Otherwise, training underscore demo, let me put that. So now this training class will be mapped to training underscore demo table in the database, right? That's what we have, isn't it? SQL Pro, it's training underscore demo, yes. Okay, I go back here. Okay, I keep it. And what else? I created a training repository. Did I write any implementation class here? No, it is the responsibility of your Spring framework to do it. JPA repository, this is the class, this is the data type of the primary key, right? This is the data type of the primary key in my training. This is the data type, integer is the data type of the primary key. That's what I need to give over here. And then you see this, I created a new controller stuff and all. I have already explained. Let me go back over here. Let me click right mouse button and restart. And now my application starts as a Spring Boot application. Oh, superb. I'm getting errors. It says, what is the data source URL? Now, you know what? Spring Boot does a lot of auto configuration. Internally, it creates a data source. That is actually the data source which can work with the database pool also. So it says, well, how do I establish connection? Of course, I don't need to establish connection. It is Spring JPA that will establish the connection to the database. It is Spring JPA that will load the class, the driver class and stuff. But it needs to know where is that database? Where the database is. What is the URL of the database? What is the username and the password? That's what I need to do. So what I'm going to do here is I will go to my application.properties file. Hello. Within resources, you see this, within resources, application.properties file, and here I'll say spring dot data source. Okay, you can see this data source. Okay, Spring, you can see this JPA data data source spring dot JPA dot data source. Okay, okay, JPA dot. Okay, if not this, then data source. Okay, spring dot data source. Okay, it is spring dot data source dot. I will say JDBC URL. Okay. Spring data source. Okay, so it will this is what it needs. Hikari is the database pool that it will automatically create. So this is the URL that I will give. This is the URL. Okay, I go back here. So this is the URL I'm configuring. Then it needs data source dot Hikari. Okay, dot username. Okay, which happens to be root, and then I'll say dot password, which is nothing, no password. That's it. So this JDBC demo that I had created had public static void main. This I was running as a plain Java application, not as a Spring Boot application. I repeat, this was not being run as a Spring Boot application. So what I'm going to do now is again go back over here. I can, either I can start my Spring Boot application from here, or I can click right mouse button over here on this class. This is a Spring Boot application. Please see. This also has a public static void main, but this is a Spring Boot application. This JDBC demo is not a Spring Boot application. This is a normal Java application. Okay, so I will, in order to make use of my REST controller stuff and all, needless to say, it has to be a Spring Boot application. So I can click right mouse button here on the class, run as this time I'll say Spring Boot app. You can see the Spring Boot app. Or I could have started from here also. Now this time again, there is an error. Data source, your attribute is not specified, no embedded data source. Okay. I think I need to specify dot, okay. driver class is what I need to specify. Okay, driver class is what I need to specify. So that driver class happens to be, we know very well what that driver class is, com.mysql.driver. Okay, here you go. Let me now run it and see. I'll say run as Spring Boot application. Oh no, it needs a data source URL. So let me check this out. I am missing something over here, so not a problem. Yeah, right, friends. So I'm sorry. This is how it is supposed to be. You need to give the driver class name, whatever the driver class is. And then, of course, you need to say spring.datasource.url. Sorry, earlier, what was it? It was Hikari pool. No, let's not get into that. So this is the property that you need to set. And the same thing, JDBC MySQL localhost 330 and whatever is the database, whatever is the username and password. But here, not Hikari, not, Hikari username and Hikari password. It is supposed to be spring.datasource.username. That's what we are using here. Okay, so this, once again, please take a look. I'm going to share this project anyways with you. So this is what your application.properties file must look like. Okay, and then once this is done, you can see this. Once again, I'm going to run my application. I'm closing all the classes. Either I run from here or I click right mouse button, run as, and I say Spring Boot based application. And you can see this now, no errors at all. And it has anyways picked up Hikari pool by default. And see my application has started on port 8080. It is listening. Please take a look once again, training REST controller. What exactly do you think here is the path? v1/trainings is the path. How will I access it? I'll go to my Chrome. Okay, or else best I will go to my Postman. Okay, always use Postman as much as possible. Don't use Chrome in order to do your testing. Postman is good. In fact, the best way is to write your own unit test cases, but we will discuss and learn that later. So here it is. I'll say v1/ instead of customers, I'll say v1/trainings, and I'll say send. And you can see this here. There is an error. Let me see what that error is. There is a problem here, and what that problem is, unknown column training underscore ID in this field. Oh, okay. There is an issue here. That issue, I know what that issue is. Actually, I must give a dialect. I must give a dialect, and that dialect is supposed to really look like, application or properties file. Okay, I'll say spring dot data source dot. You can see this. Connection, idle timeout, read, transaction isolation, SQL codes, driver class name, initial max size, data source, DBCP, and data source. Okay, generate unique name, driver class name. Okay, and then schema password, platform. Okay, separator abandoned. Okay. Okay, no worries. I will tell you from my application. I've got terminal. Okay, and I will say open -n/application spring. Alright, friends, so see, this is what it is, from these latest versions of JPA stuff and all requires these additional properties here. So I will share this with you. Don't worry, this is once and for all that you need to set in your application or properties file. You see spring.jpa.properties.hibernate.dialect. It needs to know what the dialect is. Is it Oracle dialect or a MySQL dialect or something else? So I've said MySQL 5 dialect. And then it also needs to know what is the naming strategy. How will it map the columns with the table in the data? How will it map the property names in the in your application to the columns of the table in the database? So I need to give physical naming strategy. Whatever name I have given here, map exactly the same name. Now it works. So once again, these were the two properties that were missing, and I'm back again over here. Same stuff here. Let me restart my application once again, and you see this here. I go back to my Postman. Okay, let it get started. It has started. I go to my Postman, my dear friends, and you can see this. I say send, and you can see this here. I'm getting both. Where is this coming from? Is this time? This is not hard coded, my dear friends. This is coming from the database. I go to my SQL Pro once again. You see this Apache Kafka. Instead of this Apache Kafka, I said 2.x. I'm changing the value here. I refresh, and you can see this is 2.x. I go back and hit again on my API. I get Apache Kafka 2.x. You can see this. It's not hard coded. It is coming from the database. It's coming from the database. See the beauty here. See the beauty here, friends, of JPA. What did I do? Yes, I did. I spent some time figuring out what are the properties. But this is once and for all. I don't need to set it for each and every table again and again. This is the standard property that I need to give. Once this is given, the only thing that I've done is I've created a training class. Okay, I've got a class called training. I've got the properties here, which are equal to the properties, the columns of in the table in the database. And this is the class. This is the name of the table in the database. Okay, and this is the training repository that I have created. Did I create any implementation class? Did I fire any select, update, insert, delete? Absolutely not. Okay, I want you to understand this JDBC demo that we created is a separate application. It's a plain Java application. See how much of code we have written just simply because we wanted to just get the data from the training table, and we have written so much of code. Okay, I don't need that. I don't need that in my Spring Boot application. I created my controller. I just said training repo, this training repo. See, this so simple, so simple. It just automatically fired the select statement, got the data, put it into the training list, and it has given it to me, which I'm returning back from here. This is the API v1/trainings. You can see right here in front of you in Postman, I'm saying send and I get the data. You can see I'm saying send and I'm getting the data here. What is getting returned back is this. Suppose I return back new array list here, I won't get anything. Okay, just different ways of explaining things to you. Again, I click right mouse button, run as Spring Boot application. You can see this. It's an empty array. It's an empty array that I'm returning it back. Okay, it's already running. So what I need to do is, that is the reason I always start from here. It will restart automatically. Even if it is running, it will stop it and start it again. But when I do it from here, it will try to start again, irrespective of whether it is already, stopped or started. So I go back over here. I say send. I get an empty array. Why? Because I returned a new array list, an empty array list from here. Of course, this is not what I will be ever doing. This was just for the sake of explanation. Trainings. Again, I click here. Again, I hit restart. Right. I go back over here. I say send. Here you are. I get the data. Now, the homework for you is that, friends, create at least 4 or 5 tables. Like the one I created training, I want you to create a database in MySQL. I want you to get a tool using which you can peep into MySQL and create a database and create new tables. I want you to create at least 4 or 5 tables with at least 3-4 properties in it. I want you to create repositories for each one. See, each table will have its own class. Training table will have its training class. Customer table will have its customer class. Supplier table will have its supplier class. You will have whatever table, one class, one table, one class in your application, and then one class, one repository. For training repository. For customer repository. For vessel repository, and so on. I want you to create at least 4 or 5 tables in the database, at least few properties in it, few columns in it, with one of the columns as primary key. I want you to actually create classes like this. I want you to create APIs, my dear friends, like this, training, REST controller, or whatever controllers and stuff and all. I want you to define APIs and say find all. I want you to all on your own figure out how will you. I'm just giving you a hint over here. I want another APIs. I want you to create other APIs also. Okay, create more API. Okay, which will return just a particular training, which you would mark it with a path variable. You remember path variable? I did discuss path variable in detail yesterday. Path variable. Okay, and return a particular customer. How you do that? How do you do that? You can see this training report dot. I'll say find by. I'm just giving you the hint. Please see find by ID. I pass an integer as a parameter. What will it return back is one single optional object called training. When I say optional, you figure out what is java.util.optional, and then see java.util.optional is a part of Java 1.8. It's a very simple thing. You Google on what java.util.optional is, and you will be able to understand and how to get the data from an optional. Okay, do some R&D on java.util.optional. Okay, do some. It's just a matter of 5 minutes for you to understand what it is, and then use training repo.find by ID. And this find by ID, you did not write code for it. It's automatically there in the training repository, and you will get it. And similarly, you will have in all your respective repositories. I want you to work for at least 10 hours today, my dear friend. I want you to work for at least 10 hours today, and you must be a pro in writing, APIs which will talk to the database and get the data. I want you to be a pro at this. Loads of work for you, loads of R&D for you, and get started. All the best, and have a wonderful R&D day today. Thank you.